Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Bowen. I'm here to talk to you about our lesson for Thursday, March 19th, 2020. You have 3 things to do today. The first of which is to watch this video that I am recording right now and take notes on it in your notebook. Then I want you to watch this History Channel video on technological developments in World War I, and then one more video on trench warfare in World War I. And we will do an activity with this information on Friday. So it's important that you watch the videos and take the notes. So today we are going to talk about World War I. Go ahead and update your table of contents. Today is the 19th, and the topic that you need to write on your table of contents is World War I, conditions, technology, war tactics. Okay, so I'm just going to let you take freehand notes today. I'm not going to give you a graphic organizer or anything, but the notes aren't very long, so you should have plenty of room in your notebook to take these notes. So the content objective for today is students will be able to demonstrate an understanding of the long-term causes of World War I and its global impact. Students will be able to describe conditions on the war front for soldiers, including new technology and war tactics. So last time I told you that the war broke out because the Archduke Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated, and that we had alliances between Austro-Hungary and Germany. So Germany had to come to the aid of Austria-Hungary, and then Russia was coming to the aid of Serbia. So this is what the breakdown between the Allied powers and the Central powers looked like in World War I. So you can see that the Central powers include Austria-Hungary, the German Empire, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. So they are fighting against the Allied powers, which include Russia, Romania, Serbia, Albania, Greece, Italy, France, Belgium, Great Britain, and some other countries, and eventually the United States. There are some countries that remain neutral throughout. So we will talk about the different fighting that went on. We have the Western Front over here between Germany and France, and the Eastern Front over here in Russia, between Russia and the German Empire and Austria-Hungary. So let's talk about the 3 different fronts that existed. So you need to know that the Western Front was France versus Germany, right here, France and Germany. The Eastern Front is Germany and Russia, which took place over here. And then at sea, we have Great Britain fighting Germany all throughout the North Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so the World War I was fought on the Western Front, which quickly developed the reputation for a slaughter. It was known as the meat grinder. It was a 500-mile-long network for trenches, bunkers, minefields, machine gun nests, and artillery that ran from Switzerland to the English Channel. So here is our picture of the Western Front. So this dotted line right here going through parts of Belgium and Germany and France, and all the way down into Switzerland. So this is a very long front to have, basically dividing the 2 sides between each other, and they basically stayed on each side of this line and fought each other for 2 years. I'm sorry, for 4 years. Where's my math? For about 4 years. So if you can imagine just sitting across from another army and fighting them in a dirty, nasty, stinky trench for 4 years, that is World War I. Okay, so the Western Front was both successful and a failure for early 20th century warfare. There was it's just horrible conditions. The soldiers were in trenches, which they dug out. So they basically dug the earth out and just made a little place where you could barely walk. And they got bigger over time, but at first they're very small. And this is why I want you to watch that video, because it will show it very well. And underground bunkers. There was a constant threat of gunfire if you stuck your head up above a trench. You could have poison gas thrown into your trench, which was pretty disgusting and could kill you because they didn't have gas masks at the beginning of the war. It was muddy, it was rainy, so you're in a dirt-filled trench, basically. So when it rains, it gets really muddy. It was very hard for them to keep their feet dry, and this resulted in trench foot, which meant that you had to have your feet cut off or amputated because your feet were just basically rotting because they never were able to be dry. They had rats and other vermin in the trenches as well, and they employed the use of dogs to actually hunt the rats. There are numerous pictures of World War I trenches with people just stringing up rats all over the place. So if you want to Google World War I trench rats, that would be a fun thing to do in your spare time. So the war on the Western Front, this is the first time that we have the mass production of weapons and ammunition. And this made defensive positions easy to hold, but it made transportation technology, it made offense really difficult. So the defense was fine, you could defend yourself, but it was very hard to take any ground from the other side. So this results in a stalemate in which neither side is winning. They are basically stuck in place. And a lot of people died, but they really did not gain very much territory. So they lost a lot of lives, and it was really horrible conditions for the soldiers who fought in World War I. Technology in World War I, it started with horses, and they rode in on horses and they rode out on airplanes. So technology improved vastly during the war, partially because it was a stalemate. They had to improve technology to be able to have any kind of effect during the war. So they came out with landmines, which is basically a bomb that you bury in what's called no man's land, which is the point between the two trenches, the trench of one army and the trench of the other army. So they had mines, so you would walk and then step on it and boom, it would explode and you would die. They also had a lot of barbed wire surrounding no man's land, in and out of no man's land, that you could get tangled up in if you were trying to cross. They used poison gas, and here's a picture of a gas mask, but again, these didn't come about until a lot later in the war. Machine guns were invented around this time, and if somebody tried to run out of their trench and across no man's land, they could easily be taken down with machine guns. So again, not really effective, and they're not gaining a lot of ground. Tanks and also airplanes were created during World War I, but at the very later parts of World War I for the airplanes. Okay, so war on the Eastern Front, this is between Germany and Russia. Germany was very industrialized, but Russia was not industrialized as much, but Russia had a lot of people, a lot of manpower, and they had support from their allies. Russia eventually quits the war because they have a Russian Revolution in 1917, which basically forces them to withdraw from the war because they are having so many problems at home. And we will talk about the Russian Revolution a little bit later. Okay, so the Allied victory in World War I was largely the result of the British Navy. So Britain utilized its vast surface flight and underwater mines to blockade Germany, and this blockade cut off Germany's access to its colonies and their much needed raw materials. Germany responded with an attempt to utilize its submarine fleet to blockade Britain, but Germany had a little bit of success, but it proved to be the deciding factor in bringing the United States into the war. The United States entered the war after the sinking of a passenger liner, the Lusitania, by a German U-boat in 1915, and there were several American civilians on board the Lusitania. So this shifted American public opinion towards the war. We really didn't want to get involved in the war at first, but because of the sinking of the Lusitania, the U.S. entered the war in 1917. And with the support of American factories and the American Navy and the American soldiers, the Allies were able to outlast the Central Powers, and this led to the Allied victory in 1919. There were also conflicts in other parts of the world during World War I. There were conflicts in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Soldiers from the European colonies served in these battles as well on the Western Front. The deployment of troops from all over the world helped to spread a particularly deadly strain of influenza, and influenza actually killed more people than the actual fighting. It killed about 20 million people just from the spread of the flu. It basically killed 1 in 40 of those infected to almost every person on Earth. So killed a lot of people. The total number of people killed during World War I was 40 million people. So this was particularly devastating to the world as we know it, because so many people were involved in World War I, and we will talk about how that's going to impact, the world after World War I, the effects of World War I next week. Tomorrow we will do an activity, and I will send that information out to you on Friday. But for now, go and watch those 2 videos, one on the technology in World War I and the other one on trench warfare, and pay particular attention to the different types of technology, because I am going to ask you to do something with that tomorrow. Okay, have a great day.